Hi, and welcome to the Crafty Controller Linux install tutorial. My name is Philip, and I'm here to help guide you along your way of installing Crafty Controller. A few things real quick. You may hear some strange sounds. I have a wonderful wife who is very fond of ferrets, so I have 3, and she also likes dogs, so we have 4. My dogs bark at the wind and people with beards and hats, so you may hear that. Also, my keyboard's a little loud at times just because I was raised on old school keyboards that did some, took some serious pressure to make them work. Also, I'm slightly sick, so let's continue on here. So this tutorial is going to show you how to install Crafty Controller on a Linux environment. I hope that you are comfortable with the command line. I hope that you are at least semi-decent with Linux and have poked around with it for a little bit. If not, you probably need to do some Googling and some learning and then come back and watch this video. That all said, let's get started. So here we have a virtual container. It's not a virtual machine, it is a container. There is a difference. I will briefly explain that. A VM has its own emulated hardware. There's a little more overhead involved with them, but security-wise, they are much more secure than a container. A container, on the other hand, is more of a kind of like a Docker type setup with some extensions. But the thing with containers is that they share the same kernel as the host machine, which is why they are a bit of a security vulnerability. If someone were to pop your server, they would then have access to your kernel that your main machine runs and could possibly do some local privilege escalation and take over that machine. I highly suggest not running inside a container. I am only running in a container because I do cybersecurity for a living, so if someone wants to try to hack me, that's fine. Plus, I'm going to be tearing down this machine in probably 20 minutes after this video is over. Anyway, so this is Testy. Testy has just been installed. It is Ubuntu 18.04. It has almost no software installed. It is the bare bones basic server. Like you can't even unzip. Okay, so we're gonna get started from scratch as though worst case scenario. Also, bear with me. This is about my 7th time trying to do this video. So inevitably things break. Things never work right when you're doing a video. So I'm a little chatty. I'm sorry. Anyway, I will try to stick to the script. So let's get started. We're going to go ahead and log in. This being a container and Proxmox, it's going to automatically have root login. Do not run as root, please. I've said that. I'll say it again. Do not run as root. We're going to go ahead and create some users real quick. So first off, we're going to create my user account. And for me, I actually want a home directory. So add user. And by the way, I've been doing Linux for a long time, about 9 years. So I'm going to try to go slow and try to explain. If I don't, I'm sorry. Anyway, so we're going to add the user ptarent, and it's going to ask me for a password for ptarent, and that password is going to be none your business. Okay, so all this is correct, and there we go. Now we're also going to go ahead and create a Crafty user. Because you do not want to run service daemons or any type of longevity ran program on a Linux machine as your user or root or anyone else. You want to create a whole new user just for that application, if possible. And with Linux, it's extremely easy. We're going to do a different command, though. We're going to do user add, and there's a huge difference between the two, and I'll explain it quickly. If you see here, we use add user. It's going to add the user, and it's also copying files from the skeleton directory into a home directory that was created. It also sets up a default shell for that user to log in. It asks you for the password. It asks you for full name. You are a full privileged user. as opposed to if you use user add. User add is used mainly for, hey look, the dogs are barking. User add is mainly used for you to add service accounts and things of that nature. So we'll just call it Crafty here, continue on. Notice it did not ask me for a password, so we need to do that. Password, okay, for Crafty. And in this case, it's also none your business. So we'll do that. Now we have our password set up. I'm going to be running a few things as sudo, and if you notice, I'm not in the sudo group. So we're going to go ahead and do that real quick. We're going to say sudo usermod add to a group sudo ptarent, and now I am in the sudo group. So I have sudo privileges on the box. The box is running SSH. It's about all it's running, honestly. We've created a Crafty user that is dedicated just for Crafty. We're not doing anything else. So we're done with this. And let us go ahead and get a terminal going, because this is where I live. Not saying that graphics aren't great, just saying this is a lot of times faster and easier, and in some cases the only way to do things. So I'm going to use tmux because I like to use tmux every single time I'm in the terminal. I'll show you why. Tmux, you can now press Control B and a %, and split your screen. And I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of tmux things, but you can do many things. One of the things you can do is you can split your screen in multiple ways like this. And you can flip back and forth between them relatively easily. I'm not going to do that. Just not. But it can be helpful based on what you're trying to do. Notice I'm all inside the same window. And also, if you ever drop your SSH session, tmux will remember where you're at. It'll actually just disconnect your session and you can hop right back into it. I'll get into that in a second when we start running Crafty as a service and doing things. Actually, not even as a service, just as a program for right now. Later on, 2.1, we're going to be building Crafty as a service. Anyway, so I'm going to go on this side of my screen over here. And first off, we're going to... Actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to go on this side because I'm indecisive today. And I just realized I don't know the IP address of that server. So we're going to go back to here. And how do we get the IP address on a Linux machine? There are 16 different ways. You can do ifconfig, which is not installed. Like I said, there are many things not installed on this machine. Least needed things and such. So IP address show, on the other hand, works pretty much anywhere. So this is the IP address that we've gotten today, or at least for this video, because it's been different every single video. My DHCP scope is rather large. And I'm going to paste it off screen so that I can remember it and not seem like too much of an idiot. Okay, so now we're going to SSH 10.10.10.101. Lots of... It's like binary. Anyway, we're going to say yes. We're going to connect to our machine, and now we are on ptarent at testy. All right. What we're going to do now is we're going to create a few folders and places, do some housekeeping real quick for Crafty. So what we're going to do is we're going to sudo, and I only need sudo because of where I'm putting these directories, by the way. If you want to run Crafty out of your home, you can totally run it out of your home device, or your home partition. That's fine. I'm not going to. I like everything to be in var opt Minecraft. I'm making a folder for my server, and now we'll make one for our Crafty. I put it in the -p so that you can do a whole path. And I know I can type that as one command. I wanted to make things easy. So even though I know some advanced techniques, I'm going to dumb the video down just a little bit so that it's easier for people when I'm trying to explain it over a video. Anyway, so we've got those two things done, and if you check to make sure that it worked, you'll see that Crafty and Server are owned by root. You need to keep in mind who owns what folders inside of Linux, because I use sudo to create those, and you have to because var opt is owned by root. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is we're going to copy over a fresh copy of Crafty. I already have Crafty downloaded, but if you don't, you'll go to craftycontrol.com. You'll go to Crafty Releases and go to Releases, and there is our Linux installer. And 3 people have downloaded it in the last 3 hours, which is slightly amazing for me. I'm really surprised at the numbers. So unfortunately, you can't just copy this and wget it down. I do this so that I can actually go through and keep track of the downloads, and that's one of the hang-ups of it. Eventually, I'm going to have a software distribution done differently, but for right now, this is all I got time to mess with. Running this project has kind of consumed a large amount of my life. So anyway, we downloaded it, and at this point, we have it in our downloads folder. And so if we go to downloads, you will see that I have install Crafty. You'll also see that I've been working on this video. Let's see, it's currently 4:40. So 4 hours almost to make this video. That's kind of damn having. So now what we're going to do is we're going to rsync that over. You could do SCP copy, but I prefer rsync because I'm an old school guy and that's what we do. So rsync, and we're going to need to type in 10.10.10.101 var opt. Whoops, can't do that, can we? You know why? Root owns that directory, not me. So we're going to put this in my home on that server. And it got copied quick. It's a small script. We're going to flip over to this side now. And look, we have install Crafty right there. Isn't that awesome? Now, again, this is a very slim server, so I need to do things you probably don't. But we're gonna install the unzip package because of the fact that we need to be able to unzip this. So there we go. Now we have the install Crafty ls, and if you try to run this straight out the gate, I'll show you what happens. It says, hey, install already is still set to false. Please edit the variables first, and I'm going to explain why in just 1 second. So we're going to Nano. Don't start a flame war, people. I know how to use Vim. I know how to use Vi. I've even used Emacs, EE, and Pico. I'm using Nano simply because it's easiest for the video. So Nano install Crafty, right? And what this is going to do is going to open up in an editor called Nano. You can move around with your keyboard as far as your arrow keys. And there's some things here. For instance, Crafty is going to get installed here. You can use anywhere you want. Again, I still prefer to go into var opt because that's just my style. Also, I'm going to pull the snaps branch. Here we're going to say install already true. Oops, all caps. And install software true. And the reasoning for that is very simple. Why do I have that little check in there? I don't want you to get anyone in the habit of downloading shell scripts and running them as root on their machine without getting in there and looking at what they do. Anyone could easily put a wget command in there and have fun. If you are in the habit of downloading shell scripts and just running them straight out the gate as root, please give me your email address and maybe your IP, and I will explain to you why you shouldn't do that. Anyway, so we're going to hit Control O, and then enter. That way we output the file. That's what Control O means. And now we Control X to escape. And now if we look at Crafty, we can now run this. So let's press up twice on the keyboard and enter. And now it'll let us go further. And at this point, we are allowed to type 1 for yes and 2 for no. We're going to go ahead and install this. So 1. And this is going to take a few minutes. I've got about 800 megs to download because, again, this is a very, very stripped down version. You probably won't need to download this much. In all honesty, you will probably only need to download maybe 50 meg. So I'm going to pause the video where we're at and come back when it's, done its thing for a while. I just wanted to take a moment to show you the screen here. If you get this, it's because it's basically saying, hey, you're installing some stuff. We need to restart some services. Is that cool? You can go ahead and say yes here. If you're doing this and people are on your server, they're going to have some lag. I suggest doing this during a maintenance window. But anyway, just wanted to give you a heads up on that, and I'll come back when it's finished. Okay, cool. So the script is finally finished. It took a few minutes. Here you see where my code really kicked off. And if you are not installing software and you already have all the dependencies, this is probably where you're going to end up. You'll see there's doing the virtual environment. You'll see that there's Crafty and it's making the virtual environment and it's doing its things. And you'll see right here we have a problem. It could not write to varopt. And I'm not exactly sure why. Oh, well, that would be why. I didn't run it as root, did I? So let's try that again. Now the good news is this is going to take a lot less time because of the fact that all this is already installed. He said, hopingly. This is installing all the pip packages that were required. This takes a few seconds. There you go. Everything's great now. So at this point, let's go ahead and verify everything did work, just because that's been my life today. So if we look in the Crafty folder, we see that it looks like it ran. We do have files in there and things, so we can go ahead and continue on with our install. So earlier, I made another folder called server, and there's nothing in there. And that's because I haven't put anything over there because I wanted to take a moment to talk about this. So Crafty expects a full running server. Don't just throw a server jar in there and think it's going to roll. It's not, because there's a EULA you have to agree to, there's plugins and things, and it just slows things up. So go ahead and get your server going. Run it. Make sure people can connect. Make sure all the hiccups are done before you turn around and try to add Crafty on top of that pile. So let's go ahead and let's do some fixing of some permissions real quick. Because if you notice, root owns this directory and also the server directory. So we need to fix that because I want to be able to write directly to there. So using sudo again, we're going to chown, change the ownership, to ptarent, and we're going to say recursive, and we're going to just say the Minecraft folder itself, and there we go. Now if we look at the Minecraft folder, I own it all, and that's great. The group is still root, and that's okay for now. We're going to change it later, don't worry. Flipping back over to my machine now, because this side's my machine. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to where I have my server set up ready to go. And you'll see in here I have that stuff. Let's remove that crash reports there. There we go. So now we have a full-on Linux or server ready to go for Minecraft. What we're going to do is we're going to copy this over to the other side. So sending this to our server again. I'm going to do a Z just because why not go ahead and compress it? It is a number of files. And I use full paths because sometimes bad things happen if you don't use full paths. And so now we're going to send this to our Minecraft server. So we're sending it from my VAROP to the servers, and notice there's a colon there. It's important. So we're going to do that. It's going to ask for permission, and we copy everything across, and you will notice that it's copying the files. And yay, wonderful. Let's go on the other side over here and make sure on the server, yay, we have the files. So we've transferred them from my box over to the other machine. That means we don't need my machine anymore. We can exit that out and get everything dedicated 100% just to this testy box. So I cleared the screen, by the way. So I'm still in my home directory. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to this directory, just our Minecraft directory for right now, because we need to do some things real quick. As our own user, let's go ahead and make sure that Crafty will start. So let's go into the Crafty folder, and you notice there's two scripts here. If you look at Run Crafty, it basically is a bash script, and we're going to cd into this directory. We're going to do a source activate. We're activating our virtual environment. Here we're changing to the correct directory, and here we're actually running Crafty. Again, don't just randomly start running shell scripts without looking at them at least. Okay? Anyway, so now as my own user, because I own both those directories, right? I own everything under Minecraft. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run Crafty. And now the Crafty installer is going to pop up. This is going to greatly change with version 2.1. It's going to literally just open up Crafty, run it, and then you go to a web page, log in, and literally there's 4 questions in a checkbox. So it's much faster to get up and running. Here, again, we default to where I feel you should install Crafty, or where your Minecraft server should be. You can put this wherever you want. You can type in home Minecraft or anything. I'm going to go ahead and leave it the way it is. I named my server Paperclip because I'm weird. And then from here, I just, there's some defaults of like, how much memory max and min, and do you need additional arguments? Do you want to auto start the server? I'm going to say no for now, just so I can show you some other stuff. And then, do these look right? You can say no and go through the whole thing again if you need to change anything. You can just say okay, roll, and then it says, hey, do you want to run the server on 8000? Why do I use 8000? Root is required for if you want to use 80 and 443. They are privileged ports, and because of that, they are locked down to root, and those who have permissions of root. So in this case, 8000 is the safest, and also you're less likely to get scanned. I don't know if you're using, running a web server on top of all this, so port specifications totally up to you. I like 8000. And now you'll see that Crafty is generating its self-signed certificate so that communication will be secure. It's got a key pair. It creates an admin user, gives you a password for that user, and it tells you to log in and change this as soon as possible. And go to your server IP. It even tells you what your IP is. That's mine. If you try to hack me, that just means that I got your IP and I can try to hack you back. Anyway, so those things happen. And now Crafty's running. We can go ahead and go back to our web browser here. HTTPS. And here's where you see every IP address I've ever typed. Okay, so now you get this screen that says your connection is not private. And that's true, in a way. There is no cert authority in this self-signed certificate. There's none, okay? And that's because I generated it myself. Well, Crafty generated it itself. Nobody else can verify the ownership of this. I could have easily said, hey, I'm Google, right? So you know this is Crafty. You can hit advanced and go on. You can sign in as admin. Now, on the self-certificate thing, if you want, you can actually download this certificate. You can actually download the whole thing and turn around and use this certificate and then install it yourself into your browser, and then you never have to worry about it again. Or you can go to something like Let's Encrypt. I may have gone there. And it's a free automated open certificate authority, 100% free. A lot of people use it. It's gaining more and more people every day. It's backed by Brave. It's backed by Chrome. It's backed by, God, Facebook. Everyone who's anyone is starting to flip over to these certs because they're cheap, because they're free. Normal cert for 2 years is about $50. So it doesn't sound like much, but when you want a wild card, all of a sudden it's like $250. And if you have a lot of servers, that can get a little expensive. If you have a lot of domains, it can really get expensive. So a lot of people are using open certs. Totally fine. Somebody actually just recently in the Discord ran Let's Encrypt, got the encryption, turn around and put those certificates inside Crafty's folder where it looks for them, and it's now 100% secure with the Let's Encrypt, which is great. They expire in 90 days. You can re-up it and just keep doing it over and over. And we're gonna have documentation on how to do that at some point. Anyway, server's down, right? None of this is able to connect. We have 0 players. We take our historical data, and we're going to go to server control and click start. But actually, we're not doing that first. We're going to go ahead and change our password, because I even told you, change your password as soon as you can. Don't use Bilbo Creepers Hate Me So Much. Not that it's a bad password, but it's a bad password because of the fact that everyone who runs Crafty knows this. So I have a very secure password that I use all the time. Every single time I set up a Crafty in my environment, I always run the same password. It is extremely secure. Totally promise it. Anyway, so we're going to change to that. And now we are logged in again. If we go up here to admin, you can see permissions we have. We have full permissions because we are admin. And we're going to go to server control. We're going to start the server. And it's running in the background right now. It's wonderful. We're going to go to server console, and you can actually watch it spin up. And this auto refreshes constantly, so if you scroll, it's going to scroll back down to show you the latest. If you want to review your logs, the best place to review your logs is under the Logs tab. And here, this does not auto scroll. Although in 2.1, there's a box right around here that you can check and it'll stop auto scrolling. You can also go to Crafty log and see what Crafty's doing. One thing I want to point out is you notice in the log there is no password, right? The password that you got here, it doesn't exist anywhere else except this screen. So write it down and change it to something you know as soon as possible. Go to your schedule log. This is where you can make sure your schedulers are firing off the way they're supposed to. I have, the server stats refresh every 10 seconds. Access log. You may want to check this out every once in a while. See if you see IP addresses that don't jive with what you know should be using it. Also going to point out that all your warnings and your errors are down here. And you can easily search. Right? So it's real time. You can also click on latest log, and you can search the latest log from right here. And you can say, where's everywhere I see the word plugin? A new tab pops open, search results, and here you'll see it's line number 100 for 179. That's the line number that this particular log was taken on. So we'll go to backups, and here you can take a backup. Notice that Crafty defaults to inside its own directory, and that'll run. And while that's running, we'll go somewhere else. And so here's the scheduled task. It's like a bot, but only better. In here you can schedule all kinds of tasks, and whenever you schedule a task, like let's say every 4 hours, backup, right? Save, and it's over here now, and it's great. It's saved. It's in the database. Until you actually click reload the scheduler, it's not going to reload and enable that. You can also check this and it'll disable. It's very easy to do. We'll go back to backups. And that backup's finished now. You can see that it's not too terrible. You can download the backup from here. You can delete it. You can also go to config. Here's your historical data. Here's the how long you're going to keep it, 2 days, right? Probably don't want it more than 2 days. Number of backups you want to keep. Maybe you want to keep a year's worth, 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, 2 weeks. You can do all that. You can change here where you want your backups as long as the user that is running Crafty is able to write to that directory. If you put a directory in here that we can't write to, Crafty isn't going to work. You can select individual folders to back up. So before you do that, though, you need to uncheck backup everything. This is so that you don't double and triple backup and cause weirdness. Okay. Also, don't back up to the space that you're backing up to. You will end up in a disk write loop because you're backing up into where you're currently backing up. So you're backing up your backup file while it's being backed up and written. I was hoping I could maybe get the word backup in there one more time, but I couldn't. But here, you can, let's say you want to back up just your plugins because they're really important, and the EULA, right? Save. And that's what'll get backed up. We'll go back to the backups folder. Let's click backup. That should probably take a few seconds. There we go. So, dramatically different sizes. You know what? Let's delete that. And we'll just say confirm. I want to delete it. In the config page, you've got Minecraft server settings. Here you can put in pre-arguments, after arguments for after running the jar, right? You can't change no GUI. It's hard-coded. I'm sorry. If it becomes an issue, let me know and I can take it out. But no one's had an issue with it. Here you can change auto start on or off and how many seconds in between turning on Crafty and it auto starting. The server port down here is important because this is how Crafty connects to your Minecraft server. Because Crafty has to do that in order to find out how many players are on there, your message of the day, and what version of server you're running. I default it to the defaults of Minecraft, but some people run a different IP. Some people use different ports, especially if you have 4 or 5 servers running. And then users, of course, is where you would set your users. Right now, you can't change anything about the admin role except the password. That will possibly change later on in the future. At least you'll be able to rename it. But that's an overview of Crafty, how to get it installed, but we're not finished yet. So Crafty works, everything's great. Let's go back to our terminal. We're going to type exit. That will automatically stop the server. Takes a second or two. Now from here, we were running Crafty as ourself. We don't want to do that. We want to use that Crafty user that we created. So let's go up a directory. Let's sudo chown Crafty no group. Okay, that's kind of important. Var opt Minecraft. Oops. -R for recursive. And now Crafty owns all that. So if we switch to Crafty, notice that it says there's no directory for home. So your home is now root, and that's fine. I like bash personally. So we're going to go ahead and run bash, and we'll go here. And now, as Crafty, we can go ahead and run that run Crafty. But we're going to hold on a second. I'm going to split my screen again. We're going to SSH into 10, 10, 10. Right. And from here, if I run PSAUX, grab Crafty, I'll see Crafty logged in, and that's about it. We'll go over here now, and we're going to run Crafty. Notice there's no sudo needed or any of that. And if we come over here and run that same command, now we see that crafty.py is running under Python, which is what Crafty Controller runs on. If we go back to our controller here, now why did it log us out? A lot of people ask this. The reason it logged you out is because every time Crafty restarts, it generates a brand new secret encryption phrase used for the cookies. This way, if someone was to somehow break my not my encryption, but the encryption, and spoof a user cookie, and you know it, then all you gotta do is turn off your Crafty and then turn it back on, and you get a whole new passphrase, and they gotta crack it again. So it's a little bit of security. It's a bit of a pain in the butt sometimes, but if you don't reset your server that often, it's not that big of a deal. So we're going to go ahead and start this one more time. And there's a reason I'm doing this, not just because I want to drag out the video any longer. We're going to do PSAUX, and notice that now Minecraft is running under that Crafty context of the Crafty user. And that's important because it's that much more secure. So I'm going to go ahead and close that session out. And now with tmux, you can leave this running, hit Control B and then D to detach. And you can actually log out of this entirely. You can also say tmux ls, and it will list. And look, I have a couple of them. I don't know which one I started. Well, one of them's from yesterday. So that's probably not the one that we started just now. So how do I attach to number 3? Well, attach. I think it's -T3. Yes, for target 3. And there's your Crafty there, and it's still running, doing its thing in the background. Of course, you can stop the server, and that'll actually shut down Crafty, I believe. 2.1, I've changed that behavior. You can hit start and stop and restart from the command line, and it will not terminate Crafty until you type exit, and then it will stay there. So that's been a quick introduction to Crafty. Oh, good lord, work fingers. My gosh, how many nested was I? Anyway, so that's been a short introduction into Crafty. I hope that I have answered some of your questions on how to set it up on a Linux machine and how to do things from that perspective. We're going to destroy this. fingers are not working today. Kill everything. So yeah, that concludes our thing in the Crafty. If you have any more questions or anything, feel free to reach out in the Discord. I'll be making one of these for Windows, which will probably be less intensive, honestly. But as you can see from the downloads, more people use Linux than they do Windows. Nothing against Windows. It's a great OS for certain things. Anyway, have a good day. Thank you.